What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, continuing my deep dive into Neil Young's Everything catalog. Going to talk about, review, encourage you to check out, rank. I'm not going to play any music from. I don't do that, so sorry. 1996's Dead Man, a soundtrack to the Jim Jarmusch film, The Western, starring Johnny Depp. I have a lot to say about this, and it's like super fragmented almost in the way that the movie and the soundtrack are like weirdly trippy and surreal, and it's like being on acid, and it's just yeah. So I'm going to try to organize my thoughts as much as possible because I'm not really sure what the best way to like go about this is, but we'll start with the movie. Because when Neil was recording this album, essentially what he did was he found a studio, he found a room, he played the movie on several screens around him. He had a guitar, an electric guitar, he had a pump organ, he had a piano. And as he watched the movie, he just went to different instruments and played those instruments as he reacted to what was on screen. He did that 3 times. Apparently, the final soundtrack is like one complete set, half of one session, half of the other. He took the best, and that's what we get for the soundtrack. And so the soundtrack is 7 Neil Young solo pieces in which he's reacting to what's on screen. Guitar solo number 1 through number 6, plus there's an organ solo thrown in the middle. And that's interspersed with dialogue, snippets from the movie, snippets of Johnny Depp reading William Blake's poetry. In the movie, Johnny Depp plays William Blake, but not the poet. He's mistaken for the poet William Blake. It's set in like the American West. It was highly praised for its accurate portrayal of different Native American tribes, cultures. So a really, really fascinating movie. And this is maybe the perfect soundtrack. The soundtrack that both elevates the movie when you're watching it, but also evokes exactly the feeling that the images create. Like, you don't need to watch the movie to have a real sense of what this movie is about just by listening to the soundtrack. Yes, the snippets of dialogue help, but what Neil does on his guitar, like, these are not traditional solos. They aren't even traditional compositional pieces. There's one piece that sounds like, okay, maybe there were ideas Neil had floating around previously and he just dropped them into this. But for the most part, he's like watching these movies, scraping his strings and then bending notes and doing like 3-note lick and then making noise. Like, it's a super sparse, intense, kind of disturbing musical affair, but it is absolutely amazing, absolutely compelling. The thing listening to this that it reminds me of, there's a song by a band called Camper von Beethoven. Kind of highly recommend you check it out. The song is called Aya Fatima, Part 1. And in the lyrics, they talk about staying in motel rooms, watching and there's a line, cowboys on acid are like Egyptian cartoons. And my whole idea of what the song is about is kind of being on a road trip, staying in a motel in the middle of nowhere. You're maybe on a psychedelic journey of some sort. You're turning on the TV and there's a Western on TV. And you're trying to watch this Western while your mind is like indulging in like this sort of psychedelic trip. And that's what this sounds like. That's what the movie is like. The movie is like being stuck in Wyoming off like I-90 in a Motel 6. It's the middle of the night. You're trying to watch some John Wayne Western and you're on an Owsley journey. And you're maybe not doing too well with it at times. And that's sort of what listening to this feels like. It's really intense. It's just, yeah, it's ominous, it's haunting, but at the same time, it's like completely compelling. Another thing that Niels did in this when he would record it is he drove around his ranch and recorded his car, like just driving around. So even though the movie is set, I think like pre-auto times, back in the past, there's still like this automobile that runs through the soundtrack that's absolutely fantastic. Another thing, if I have a complaint, and it's my only complaint, one of the movie excerpts towards the latter half of the album is one that contains Billy Bob Thornton, and Billy Bob Thornton's voice is super recognizable, and it completely takes me out of the experience, and I wish I did not have to hear Billy Bob Thornton's voice. I like Billy Bob Thornton. He's a super bad Santa. Great movie. I didn't need him on this. Like Johnny Depp is sort of the focus of the movie. Johnny Depp is definitely not in hardcore Johnny Depp mode here. Like you recognize it's Johnny Depp's voice, but he's not yet a caricature of himself, so it's not that disturbing. I think he does a good job presenting, reading Blake's poetry when he does it. The other actors who are in here work perfectly. They're not overwhelmed by their like sort of personalities. So that's my only complaint is I kind of wish Billy Bob Thornton was not on here. But it's about an hour long, just over an hour. Just an amazing listen. Opens up with guitar solo number one. You get this like, it's like a car, sounds like it's driving through rain maybe, like there's some weather going on. And then you just get Neil like literally playing the guitar, like scraping the strings and scratching the strings. And you get these just weird bursts where he like just attacks the strings. It's like very much takes advantage of the fact that this is a stringed instrument. Like if it was a piano, you could see him like opening up the lid and like scraping the strings of the piano. That's the way he's attacking the guitar in this opening. Very non-traditional, very unique, very experimental. The last like 30 seconds, it actually sounds like there's like this little melodic sort of outro to the first track that almost sounds like he's trying to compose a Western theme, but it's broken and fragmented, or we're seeing it with fractalized vision. And so it's just like shards of a Western theme. But that like cohesion briefly at the end of the first track, I don't know, provides this momentum as we go forward. Then we get the Round Stones Beneath the Earth, which is some stuff from the movie plus some Depp poetry. Guitar solo number two. It almost seems like there's a character in the movie that's like finding the energy to speak out. Like there's these really like abrupt chords. It's kind of like this tense urgency, but at the same time, it's like reticent to share information, but at the same time, it's really desperate to share information. So there's this weird tension that gets built as he just like plays these like really abrupt, jagged chords and then steps back and lets sort of the space take over. Then we get a track called Why Dost Thou Hide Thyself in Clouds? Some more Depp poetry, reading William Blake. Then we get an organ solo. Perfect timing. We've switched it up from the guitar. And the organ solo kind of reminds me of this weird moment of peace, or like finding like maybe you're in a, if this movie were like post-apocalyptic, the organ solo part would be like somebody's wandering the wasteland and they come across like a garden bed that is still like in perfect shape. And it's this moment of like really sad beauty amongst all this like hardship or existential despair. That's the way the organ comes across, at least to me. Also, in a weird way, reminds me of the French, the French expats in Apocalypse Now, the director's cut, when they're traveling up the river, and there's that weird scene where it's just all those French plantation owners who are just living this high life in the middle of the Vietnam War, and it has this really trippy, surreal, calm, disturbing beauty to it. I don't know. That's the way the organ solo reminds me. Then we have Do You Know How to Use This Weapon? We get some more dialogue. The dialogue from this movie and the poetry, William Blake's poetry, like if you had put it in the mouth of like Captain Beefheart and just let the Magic Band do crazy stuff in the background, it works in that sense. But because the musical palette is so different, it just creates a different, equally sort of jarring experience. We do get some nice guitar in the background of this that kind of adds to the words that are being spoken. Guitar solo number three feels like the build to whatever tension is happening in this movie. Things are getting bigger, like there's something transformative is going to happen, but it's not yet happening, but we're clearly leading to that for guitar solo number three. We get Nobody's Story, a lot more driving, some dialogue, some poetry. We get guitar solo number four, kind of stark, lonely notes to kind of start off. The event is happening. Whatever this thing is that the tension was leading to seems to be happening in guitar solo number four. It's kind of trippy. It's like somebody's wandering confidently through some like barren landscape, but their mind is fully engaged in a way that doesn't match the barren landscape. Like, again, there's a lot of just psychedelic energy in this. There is this impending doom that seems to be coming and causing trouble, maybe like some really dark, deep existential crisis. But yeah, guitar solo number 4, things are kind of getting unsettled. Then we get what I think might be the only misstep. We get 9 minutes of the movie, Stupid White Man. This is the one that is way too much Billy Bob Thornton. I think it's too long. There's guitar in it, but it comes in a little bit too late. I just think this could be a shorter snippet of the movie. I don't want Billy Bob Thornton in here. All the other actors I'm okay with. His is the one voice that jumps out at me. And then we get what has to be the centerpiece of the album, guitar solo number 5. It's like 14 and a half minutes. It feels like there's a composed theme in here that Neil's trying to write, but it never quite, like, you get pieces of this composed theme. You're like, oh, almost like there are times it feels like he's deconstructing like a hurricane. It's like, down, now. But you never get it. You never get things coming together and clicking. This really seems, as this 14 and a half minutes build, it seems like the main character, like Johnny Depp's character in the movie, is whatever. I don't know actually what's happening on screen at this part of the movie. I haven't seen it in 30 years. 29 years. That whatever is happening in this part of the movie feels epic. It feels like the main character is coming to some sort of like growth. This is like, the part of the movie that's like the climax. We get a little middle section of this that feels almost like Maggot Brain, that middle section of Maggot Brain where Eddie Hazel's just like making echoes with it before he goes off into the latter half of it. We're just all over the place. As we get to the end of the 14 and a half minutes, it almost seems like the song's meant to end at around 12, but we just get these repeated like fights to like stay alive and stay relevant or stay engaged in whatever battle it is. I don't know. It's just you go places in this 14 and a half minutes and you feel some sort of way. Then we get a little less than a minute snippet. Time for you to leave, William Blake. Go back to where you came from. Cleveland? No, back to where the spirits come from. Absolutely perfect little ending. And then we get this short little outro, quote unquote, solo guitar messing around as guitar solo number 6. It's like an hour long. It demands to be listened to in its entirety. It just reveals something more every time you listen to it. It is a completely singular listening experience. It doesn't necessarily demand repeated listens. It's not one of those things you're like, oh, I got to go back and listen to that right away. But it is one of those things that lingers, that you're like, I'm interested in going back and revisiting that sometime. It doesn't have to be immediately. It's a pretty intense listening experience, but it is one of those that like, it's worth re-listening to often. It's so compelling. I put this on once. We go to Bonnaroo, a music festival in Tennessee, which is like a 14-hour drive from here. And one year when we were driving back, we usually leave Monday. So usually when we're driving back, we're in the middle of Louisiana and East Texas, and like when it's dark in the middle of the night. And there's a section right before you hit the Texas border in Louisiana when you're driving through like swamps, right? So that it's an elevated freeway. You're surrounded by trees. There's nothing but pretty much water surrounding you, bayous and swamps and all this stuff. And it's just a lone, desolate, dark part of the highway. And it's about 45 minutes to an hour long. I listened to this once during that stretch. Yeah, it was pretty jarring. It was pretty jarring. When you're isolated anywhere, you definitely, you get a sense of being out in the West in this sort of like existentially sort of like question yourself type environment. I don't know. It's a fascinating album. Where would I rank it if I rank it? Because I'm going to rank it. I ranked his first soundtrack. I'm going to rank this soundtrack. I have it right there at number 20. There is nothing above this on the list that was released after it. Broken Arrow is above it on the list, but was released in the same year. Everything I think after this so far that has been released that I've talked about ranks lower than this. I do think this was kind of his last truly great effort. I think there's quite a gap between Dead Man and Prairie Wind as far as quality. I think everything above Dead Man on this list is just all albums that the more you listen to them, the more their genius comes out, especially if like when you get to like Trance and Reactor, two things that I think were woefully misunderstood when they came out. I think people more appropriately appreciate them now. But yeah, I have it at number 20. It would rank higher if it was a little more something that you were compelled to listen to more often, but because it is such an intense experience and it really is like, more often I'm in the mood to listen to a Reactor than I am into Dead Man. Though when I do listen to Dead Man, I probably experience deeper emotions than when I listen to Reactor. But this is a Neil list. 20 is still pretty ridiculously fantastic. And I have to deduct it points for making me think about Billy Bob Thornton more than I want to. So anyways, yeah, those are my thoughts on an absolutely unique listen. I highly recommend you check it out. Give yourself time to devote to listen to it properly. It is worth the energy. It is worth the effort. And as long as you don't mind Johnny Depp's voice, I think it's pretty fantastic. All right, that's all I got. Subscribe, like, share, listen. Give me your thoughts on this album. You know how this works. Go check it out. Peace. Talk to you later.